Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the Weirdly Magical podcast with Jen and Lou, and it's both of us this time. I did the quick one before I left for England for the full moon that we just had, because Jen and I could not manage to get together. It was, with my travels and things, we just couldn't do it. But we're on to the new moon. The Libra new moon is coming up. And that's on October the 8th at 8:47 p.m. Pacific, 9:47 p.m. Mountain, at 11:47 p.m. Eastern. And so I guess it's early in the morning in the UK. Don't work it out yourself. 4:47, I think, a.m. on the 9th. And it's at 15 degrees and 48 minutes of Libra. And it's almost exactly conjunct to dwarf planet Ceres, or asteroid, whichever you want to call her. And Libra, of course, is Venus ruled, and Venus turns retrograde in Scorpio just 3 days before this new moon. So it's got a very dark, witchy feel, because a new moon is kind of the dark of the moon anyway. And to add to that, the new moon aspects Pluto in Capricorn, so it squares it, and Pluto rules Scorpio, where Venus is. And there's also an uncomfortable aspect to Neptune in Pisces. So we'll look at all of that, and the numbers and anything else that jumps out of us. But before we really start, because it's conjunct Ceres and because of what's going on in the news lately, I did want to read a quote here that's from Essays on a Science of Mythology. I actually got the quote from The Asteroid Goddesses book by Demetra George. And it says, "To enter into the figure of Ceres means to be pursued, to be robbed, to be raped, to fail to understand, to rage and grieve, but then to get everything back and to be born again." So I feel it's kind of really appropriate, that quote, for the energy of this and the energy of October generally, with Venus going retrograde in Scorpio. I think there's a lot of wrath and rage going around, and we can feel it building already. What do you think, Jen?
Yes, I think that's an apt way to put it. That's a great quote. The sense that I have of Ceres is that, or what I know of her is that she is definitely involved in death and dismemberment. And of course, with Pluto right there, having that, that energy pulling, it creates more of that dark, and Venus, all of them kind of pushing us into the underworld, right? That sense of being torn from the things we have trusted.
Yeah.
And so it's very interesting. As far as from the numeric, I just wanted to mention that I read somewhere that it's coming to mind that the January moon, I believe it was the new moon in January, is a very similar. I don't know if you remember that Ceres was involved, right?
I think I vaguely do.
And there was some activity, opposition with Neptune. So we're kind of revisiting that energy, but now it's becoming more real, I think, more raw, more exposed. There's that we were in the dream time still, right? And now we're kind of, this is the peeling away. This is the part where it is that kind of savage, I feel like this is the energy of the like you were saying, the rage of the female, and rising up to claim or to dismember. And if we go dismember, like disremember, like letting go of this stuff, this cloak we've taken on. Oh, I'm supposed to be a possession and I can be used and I can't say anything, and moving into this kind of column of rage and these walkways and going, I'm coming back to reclaim myself. So there's this reclamation and retribution and all of the stuff that goes with it, because remembering that the Pluto, who also represents the plutocrats, right, the plutocracy, and is about transformation. I mean, all of this is a game of transformation. It's like how we look at it, right?
It really is. And Pluto, of course, he kidnapped Ceres' daughter, Demeter's daughter, and took her down to Hades. So they're all connected. And
yes.
And Venus, her retrograde journey is the story of Inanna, who went on her kind of journey into the underworld world to meet her shadow, Ereshkigal, her sister. So she went down into hell as well, whatever you want to call it. And so this is a real vision quest, new moon, to my mind, to go right down into the depths. And people think of Libra as so light, it is a Libra new moon.
Yes.
Libra is not light.
No, but that again is the pretense. Like when we think about peeling away the pretense, right? Like this is the illusion of, like the number 2, for instance, which is very interesting because one of the things to look at is the numerology. This month in October, we're in a 12 universal month. So we have the 10 and the 12. And so if we're looking at an 8-day, which would be in the Americas, that gives us a 20 universal day, right, which is the 2. Of course, if we look at the 9, then it's a 21, right? If we go by Europe time, it's a 9, it's 21. Right. You see how the 2s are playing. Remember, we're in an 11 year, which is also a 2. And this is, the learning or the unlearning of how to be standing on our own 2 feet. So all of the stuff, 12 in the shadow is the victim number. So all of this stuff is about how we learn to balance being in the world, in the physical world, dealing with people that are trying to control us and possess us and do all this, and how we set those boundaries, right? How we set the balance of Libra, which is the scale.
Yep. And of course, at 15 degrees, which is the middle degree, I always think of that as a very much a pivot point anyway, when the scale has a pivot point. I really think, I feel, and I've looked at a lot of the other astrology, and I'll save the astrology of the end of the month for our next podcast.
Yes.
But I really do think we are reaching some real turning points with the nodes. They're going to shift back into Cancer and Capricorn on election day for the midterms here in the US. But to talk about a few other things, I just want for the readers to talk about some of the themes of Ceres astrologically, because she's known as the Great Mother, but she has, she's got the polarity of compassion and anger. She represents unconditional love, but she also does represent this deep grief. And, to look at what's going on in the world right now as we head towards this new moon, there's so much deep grief about, because people are being triggered. Their Me Too stories, their sexual abuse stories are being triggered. And a lot of fear has been triggered amongst a lot of men as well. Because I don't know, I've never seen before so many men say that they're afraid of women now. It's like, and I'm going, what do you have to be afraid of if you've done nothing? But that's
yes,
yeah.
This is the legend of the female. Like the female has been kind of highlighted as the devil, and all these stories around female
demonizing the female.
Right. Yeah. And so, of course, how did they keep the patriarchy going, right? We look at ourselves and say, well, we as women have been abused, but in actual fact, and that's true, but there are many men that have been abused into the system too.
Absolutely.
Right? So they have this illusion of, it's such a great thing. Like I say that great, they use it as a great tool. I don't mean it was great for us.
No,
but it was an effective tool to demonize women and to insist that the church or those like the higher ups are the ones with the wisdom and we have to go through them. And so they have been victims as much as we have. And so this 12, it's so interesting. Like one of the interesting things about October is because it's a 10 months, on the calendar, which is a 1, it always gives us a mini look at what's coming up in the year to follow, right?
Right. Okay.
Because we will be in a 12-year next year, right? So this is a glimpse and an opportunity. Where are we focusing? This idea of this new beginning that we're entering, right? We're on this, like you talked about, that we're in the middle, which is the Libra energy, right? The Libra energy is that opportunity to decide, where am I going to put my weight? Do I want these scales to be even? What's important? And what's coming to mind, which I think is really key about this year and this situation, is when we think about the true meaning of the scale, the true idea of judgment, right? When we think from the universal aspect or the divine aspect, is the feather, as light as a feather, the feather of Ma'at, right? Which is this female energy, the wise female, who balances between her fury and her love, right? This compassion. This is what this is all about. And how we decide, like, where is that middle ground? Like, and all of this energy has been artificially controlled for all these years.
Yeah. And when I look at the astrology and what's happening, I really feel like, well, I think I wrote it in one of my posts a couple of days ago, that the muzzle is off. It's like,
Yes.
the women are not going to be kept down anymore, or the divine feminine, not just women. It's because clearly, as you mentioned already, it's affected men too, because we all have male and female within us. So when I say men and women, I'm not talking about, I'm not a man hater. I happen to love them. I have some wonderful men in my life, but it's the patriarchy. It's what that male represents, which we've kind of got in our face at the moment politically, with our lovely president and with the Supreme Court nominee. They're just, it's just being revealed, all this detritus and the nastiness of the worst of the patriarchy. They're kind of unconscious representations of it in some way. And I really feel like this new moon is, and a lot of the other energies around it with Venus retrograde, are kind of taking it to the patriarchy.
Yes.
Well,
we have to, there's so many aspects. Like, here is the patriarchy knowing that it's in trouble, right? Yeah. So whether they recognize it or not consciously, there's a visceral recognition of a dying age. This idea, like, we had it good, we could do whatever we wanted, right? But it's based on fear. And one of the things that's, so I get this idea, like, okay, we're just going to ram our stuff in, and nobody will care because we've done this before many times. The interesting thing is we can see more clearly than we have before. So what's really happening is our grasp or grip on the patriarchal society, which we are all engaged in, whether we recognize it or not, is we have been hanging on to the patriarchy because of the safety issue.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's being ripped out of our hands and we're going, oh my God, what do I do? I don't know what to do. Like, now we are looking at these guys, like, the Senate, the Republicans, whatever, in the Senate, who are the extreme examples of, I'm going to do whatever I'm going to do. Like, I'm going to bully my way and ram my way through this. And to them, they don't realize that it's so obvious. Like the veil's been ripped so we can see it. So we see the betrayal, right? Because now we're looking at, and it may not be obvious to all of us right now, but on some visceral level, we see the betrayal, like it's being revealed to us that these people that we have sacrificed for and kept quiet for don't care about us. Like they're not keeping us safe. And so we have to now get up and go out and speak out, and that's what's pulling out our voices out. That's what's saying, well, I've tried it all. I've done all these things I'm supposed to, and now I need to just speak my truth. It's all about truth, right? The focus of this thing that's been going on has been truth.
Yep.
The number 10 is the number of the balance between male and female. So there again is
and
that.
There's Venus at 10 degrees too.
That's right. I was just looking. There's a bunch of ones we have. So I'm just looking here. We have Uranus at 1 degree, which of course is pushing us into this earthly, making it real. Like this really is crunch time. Like we are going to battle. We may not all gather up swords in a real way. I don't know. I mean, there definitely will be violence and impact through this, but we're definitely going to the one, the energy of self. Like, I can't change the world by looking at other people and telling them what to do. I change the world by changing who I am, who am I willing to be, to show up.
Yeah.
And we have examples of people doing that, men and women, children coming out, right? People of color, all these different repressed groups coming out and going, I want something different. I demand something different.
Absolutely. It's quite fascinating, and it's chaotic, and it's I always think of Libra, and because this is a Libra new moon, of I know everybody goes, the scales, but I actually think of a seesaw or a teeter-totter, whatever you call them here.
Oh, yes.
And that you're kind of running from one end to the other. never quite managing to get that bit where they're both equal in places. And that's what it feels like to me. And of course, I did want to mention as well that Ceres is also about the death passage transitions. There's a lot of death in this chart. Death, not before anybody goes, I mean, spiritual death and death of systems and death of things like that. Because of course, Libra is justice as well. Libra kind of represents the courts, and isn't that interesting with what we've got going on in them?
Yes, right. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. So it really is. I hate to only talk about current events, but if people think what's without affects us within, of course. So it's all a representative of how we are finding our own personal balance, not making up, but deciding which rules we want to live by. There's all that kind of energy as well. We're not making up our own rules, I don't mean that, but because there are some natural laws, but there's also a pull back to the natural laws. If you notice as well, there is a T-square between true Black Moon Lilith over there in Aquarius, Jupiter in Scorpio, and Sedna in Taurus. So Sedna and Lilith are both quite tragic stories, but they're quite vengeful kind of characters as well, who were thrown out and females again in the old myths, treated very badly by the patriarchy. And Jupiter in Scorpio has been digging up the Me Too movement since he moved into Scorpio last October. So I think it feels very angry for me. I don't think I've seen so many people, but righteous anger. I'm not talking about, I'm not too.
Yes. Well, I think this is the thing right here is this is a really important energy that we need in order to move us through the hump. This is a very difficult time because we can't just look at what's happening and go, oh, well, not my problem. It's
Exactly.
sucked in, we're being called in. And the interesting thing is that this is about choosing, right? And that's a two thing as well, creating balance or finding that middle ground between two polarities. And that's what this year is about. That's what this energy is about, is making that choice. Where is my middle ground? Now, it doesn't mean we can't move that bar to somewhere else at some point, but it's like, it's here, no more. And the idea of these energies you were talking about, Lilith and Sedna, the idea is they were outsiders. Now, women have been, or the softer side or the feminine side has been an outsider of this experience. And it's like, okay, no more. I'm going to show my fury. Remembering that women have been muted and told to keep quiet and don't say anything and just put up and shut up and all of these things that are, it's like it's just that doorway that's now being flung open because of Jupiter and all of this movement in Scorpio. Is like we are being forced to face the things we've hidden and go into the space of looking at, our what we owe and what we've given, like how we've enslaved ourselves to a system, to what was our exchange, right? And for me, when I look at like the current event thing, that's kind of the feeling I get from these guys, the way they're speaking out, like, you owe me, like, give this to me. I've done all this work. And it's a completely different energy coming from the feminine side, which again is all of us have our feminine sides. I'm not necessarily not speaking about women, but this idea, like, that was a stark contrast. When you know who you are and I'm choosing to speak out, I'm choosing to bring the truth, I'm choosing to say no more of this. There's a very different energy because it's not about give me what I worked for.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So it's a very different feel.
And I did want to mention, I think I briefly mentioned it before, but it just came to mind, of the polarity of Ceres, that is compassion and anger. The fact she's in Libra, this has got this teeter-totter scale kind of thing. We're trying to balance this righteous anger with compassion. And I think most of the feminine energy is bringing that in. I'm going to give my personal view yesterday from watching the Senate hearings for Kavanaugh and Dr. Ford's testimony. I mean, talking of Kavanaugh, he did lose it, really, in my opinion.
Yes.
But I feel a bit of compassion for him. That doesn't mean I want to give him a pass for anything or anything like that. And I feel righteous anger for the fact that guys like that have kind of got away with stuff for such a long time and felt entitled to it. But I still can feel compassion too for the fact that they were brought up in it. It's just what was done, They're not individually kind of evil, if you like. That's my opinion anyway. That's how I get this feeling. It doesn't mean, because I had a guy say to me the other day, oh, what's all this anger getting you? And I said, oh, it's getting me moving. Thank you.
I think that's a really great point, right? That this the point of these people like Kavanaugh and the senators in the and I also have my opinion about it and etc. And I think he did a poor show in the sense of whatever it is he was trying to showcase.
Yeah.
However, the point of all this is to see this entitlement and to recognize we have choices. Like, I felt like if he had come out and said, all through this process, if he had come out and said, I did terrible things in high school, I drank, I did all this, whatever, I would have felt a much more humane connection. Like, I can understand.
Yeah, absolutely.
The absolute lying and denial of, in the face of all of this,
But that's the hanging on with the fingernails thing. He's representing that,
exactly.
isn't he?
But
Yeah.
the point is that this is what creates the deep root. This is what's getting to the deep root wounds, right? Which is what this is all about. How we actually begin to see and acknowledge our deep root wounds so we can actually create some balance and harmony in our lives. We don't have to be resentful. So all this anger rising, we share our stories, we are heard, we feel exonerated, because once we speak it out, then we are freed to go, but I still have this energy inside of me. I want something different. So it's an anger with a purpose, right?
Oh,
It's
yeah.
this Martian energy that's taking us like, I'm bringing something different. And I notice also very interesting that Mercury is a 28 degree. There's that 10 again, this very much of this speaking out, you know, it's a righteous truth. It's about not betraying yourself. And I think that's the key with Kavanaugh to me, is he betrayed himself.
Yeah.
And they've all betrayed themselves, whatever they want to tell themselves and cheer themselves on. In the end, they have betrayed themselves. And it's really hard to come back from your own betrayal, because this is about responsibility. This is this moment we're in where we have to take responsibility for ourselves and go, I had this experience, right? We're not saying validate my experience. We're just saying, I had this experience. Let me speak about my experience. Just be quiet. Let me express myself. Just listen, hold space, give me compassion. That's all. You don't have to say, yes, I know, I believe you, right?
Yeah.
Right? So there's a difference here. There's this idea of denial. It didn't happen. It's that subterfuge. I'm just going to pretend it didn't happen and therefore it didn't happen. I'm going to manipulate the situation so I don't have to take responsibility. But in the bigger picture, he's doing us all a favor, because he's helping us. These guys are helping us to defeat them, which is kind of crazy, right?
I know. By kind of like getting apoplectic and petulant and belligerent.
Yes, they're showing their weakness. They're trying to bludgeon us into doing it. And what it's doing is it's actually dispersing the fear, which is a key element here. We got to let go of that fear.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting that the 15 degrees, right? It's the 15 degrees, the minutes of the 12, the number of the 12. The interesting thing with the 12 that I did mention quickly is, on the one hand, it is the victim, right? It's the choice. Again, the 12, 1 and a 2 adds up to a 3. We birthing something here, a joyful expression of who we are through our experience, through our knowledge, and we're birthing it into a place of joy, of expression, right? So in the case of, you can say Ford, Blasey Ford, she birthed something into joy. She was very joyful to me. The way she expressed herself felt very light and joyful. And comparison to this heavier, darker choice of, I'm going to force you to accept my tale. Like, I have to force myself. Like, when we're talking out in the world, we're really talking to ourselves, right? Like, we're trying to convince ourselves it's right, or we know that what we're doing is right. It's a very different energy. This is the energy of the 12 right there, right? One chose to go into victimhood. The other chose to use her experience to go into joy. I'm expressing myself. I'm freed, in a sense. So that's a key part of this number, this whole month, which will be part of next year. The other thing is the 15 is this number. If we go on the 9, we have the 369 code, which is all about love, right? Love on every level, expanding ourselves into love. And the 15 is actually a magical number. It's an alchemy. When we are inspired by our willingness to know ourselves and move with that energy, we expand into joy through service. So this is the service of love. By giving who we are, by being who we are, by sharing our pain with each other and recognizing I see you expressing your pain. I'm making space. I see you have a desire. How can we collaborate? We're actually collecting the energy to be of service in the most divine way, which is absolutely unbelievable when you think about this idea of the balance or the connection of the Libra, right? And all we're talking about.
And it's such a yin quality. I'm echoing.
Yes. Yes, it is, right? It is totally. I mean, I think there's so much beauty. I feel like this moon is touched by the divine. It's really giving us that finger of God into our hearts where we go, wow, I can see beyond, because I'm not all caught up in my victimhood. I've expressed my pain and rage, and I'm continuing to stand up for myself. And that is what opens the doorway to change for us, right?
And of course there is. Am I going for you?
No.
Okay. Okay. I don't know why. So there is an aspect from the new moon to Neptune in Pisces, and Neptune in Pisces really is the divine. You know.
Interesting. Yes, that's right.
And it's an uncomfortable aspect, but it's there, and it's there for the bringing down, and it's at the same degree as Ceres.
Yes, which is fascinating, that 14, because 14 is the number of the scribe, or getting your voice out there, being heard. So it's the media number, right? So it really is about speaking your truth out into the marketplace.
Yep. And I don't know why my sound's weird.
The energies are so crazy right now, right? So who knows why any of this stuff is happening.
I'm just going to keep talking.
All right.
So I thought you could read the Sabian symbol.
Okay, I'm ready. So we're looking at number 16 for the Sabian symbol, and it is Libra 16 degrees. After a storm, a boat landing stands in need of reconstruction. So this is about the need to keep in operation steady links between the vast unconscious and the ego conscious.
That's interesting, especially with that aspect to Neptune.
Yes.
Yeah,
right?
The vast unconscious.
And the idea of, we have the boat which needs reconstruction, which is all about the right? Going down into the
death and rebirth and
exactly.
all that stuff. And the Chandra symbol is just as interesting, especially with so much kind of Scorpio energy coming into all this, and so much death and rebirth energy again, and the female energy, because the Chandra symbol is a woman, the lower half of her body is a serpent. It says magic working simultaneously from two divergent levels. The regular, human, everyday magic of holding yourself together as a complex and volatile mix by sheer intent. And the deeper magic of yielding into the undersoul, the passions, the desires, the impulses, and the skills of the subconscious levels. It says primarily being absorbed in the deep forces of body and soul. And this is deep dismemberment to my mind. But meanwhile, bending over backwards to frame everything in normalcy. This combination is extremely difficult to maintain. It's fragile, delicate, and dangerous. You secretly exult in how impossible it really is to urge yourself onwards to work this magic and wield it with the same kind of life force that moves at the edge of an abyss and stands on that edge in a balancing act that may capsize at any moment. Oh, and boats capsize, there you go. And it therefore is entered upon with a passion of the most dazzling cross between sheer foolishness and wizard's mastery. to my mind, that's talking really about going this journey into the underworld, really.
Mm.
If you look at the Inanna story with the Venus retrograde, she goes down the 7 chakras and strips off all the trappings of society and goes down right into the Kundalini energy, the bottom, right down into the underworld, her personal underworld. And that's the serpent that's been demonized for years, the divine feminine. So we come back to that. So
yes, and that's there's even the tales, which is interesting. Python, which was the the original energy, female energy that was cut down in Greek mythology.
yeah,
With I think it was Apollo or someone came, So we have all these stories of destroying the snake energy. We have a fear of snakes.
and
When
Lilith
really,
was the serpent
that's
in
right.
yeah.
We have all these demonized versions of all of this stuff, and really allowing the truth, the dirt, the earthiness of who we are, the animal parts of ourselves to come out, so we don't have to do things in secret or in ugliness, but we can do them. There's nothing wrong with true lust, right? That's a
Yeah.
natural part of us. We're animal bodies. Our animal bodies want to have sex and indulge in this orgasmic experience, but it's become sullied and dirty because we have made out like it's bad to have sex, which then turns into all this weird stuff, all this abuse, instead of having healthy relationships and recognizing and honoring the healthiness of normal mating.
I mean, look at all the priests, celibacy.
Yes.
Look what celibacy leads to.
Well, and the oppression, right? This is an oppression and control.
Yeah.
Control your instincts. We've lived in a society that has demanded that, our voices are too loud, we're singing too loud. This controlling of our instincts is very harmful and has buried so much crap. It's all there. So it's all coming up. Like, we're going to be around, and all this shit is going to start rising up around us.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's really interesting, the fact that Venus herself is about what we value. So this idea of love and beauty that we have kind of made it's about things, but it is not about things. It's about why are we doing what we're doing, right? And what are we thinking about? Like, when people are pressuring us to do things, why do we give in? Right? And we don't believe in it. We give in it because we think we don't have a value. So this digging deep is to find the jewels inside of us that are like, wow, I recognize my value. I can say no to someone.
And core values, that's a real meaty thing to get into.
Right,
With
exactly.
Venus. And of course Venus rules Taurus as well, where we've already talked about Uranus and Sedna over there. She's got a lot, and she rules the new moon. So Ceres and Venus and Lilith are so strong right now. They're just like so intense.
Yeah, and I really see they are being very supported by the male energies, right?
Oh, they are. Yeah.
They are being invited to express the truth, the rage. Like, the idea of burying your rage, what does it do? It internalizes and becomes poison. So releasing that rage and allowing it to become something that helps you create what you want, and it's not destructive, right? It's destructive to the old crap, but the new stuff, it's beautiful. It engages and connects. Is something amazing.
Yeah. So Lilith and I do want to quickly say something about Lilith and being supported by the male, because Lilith and Mars are doing a real dance at the moment. Lilith, the orbit of the true black moon Lilith is very erratic, very untamed, like the energy of Lilith herself. So she's dashing back and forth over Mars, meeting back and forth. But they are actually going to meet up together. And let me just look at my notes. And they're both going to square Venus pretty much as she goes retrograde. So and not long after. I can't remember the exact date, but it's all around this new moon anyway. So, you know, Mars really is our yang energy, and Venus is the yin, and then Lilith's coming in as well. So they're actually all doing a dance together for this whole period as well. So yes, you know, don't want to demonize the male. So
I think this is, but it's also an opportunity for male energy to be awakened in a whole new way. Like
absolutely.
when we're engaging with males in a whole different way, it also gives us opportunities. There's many males that want to engage with women and be part of this new movement. And I think men are smart, as are women, just like they are women, the daughters of the patriarchy that are the opposite, right? But there are so many men, and this is this opportunity. It's almost like I get this feeling like, you know, it's going back to, you know, Adam and Eve, and there they are, like, let's do this again, but let's do it a different way. Let's not engage with fear. Let's engage with love, with freedom, with this idea of bringing balance, right? Remembering that we're talking about balance, the 8-day.
Come to that, try and come to that center fulcrum, really.
Well, this is about, you know, the 8 days, interesting because 8, it's about this, you know, bringing heaven and earth kind of together, right? It's we're recognizing the spiritual part and the physical part of who we are, and we're choosing to engage with joy in this, with love, not with hatred, not with anger, not with expectancy, telling somebody else what to do, but doing what we need to do and setting that up. That's the energy to come from, because, you know, when everyone does what they desire and we put our boundaries, then we're living in a healthy society.
Absolutely. Well, Jen, I think we've probably covered everything. I've actually got to go and do life things like feeding my cat, feeding my animals.
The material. You have to go back into the material, which invokes the spiritual. Yes, indeed. So exactly. I think we covered.
But they're all hovering. My dogs and cats are looking at me. Where are you feeding us? So Jen, how can people find you and what's going on with you before we leave?
All right, so they can find me pretty much all over under Jen Duchenne, or on my website, jenduchenne.com. And I'm on Facebook and YouTube and all kinds of places. So
cool. And me, I'm louiseeddington.com and Louise Eddington Astrologer Facebook page. You can find me I have a Facebook group, Planetary Magic Cafe. I would like to quickly mention, I know we don't usually kind of really, you know, sell on this, but I am doing a Venus retrograde class if anybody's interested. It's kind of a personal virtual vision quest where we will actually be doing dismemberment shamanic journeys and things in it. So, you know, you can contact me if you're interested, or you can find it on my website. But other than that, I think we're good. We'll be back in a couple of weeks to talk about the end of October, which is even more intense and crazy, I can tell you. I've had a look ahead and I'm kind of like, holy crap.
I think it's important for all of us to embrace the spirit of joy even as we move through this.
Absolutely. You know, and I try to find a bit of humor and joy in everything.
Yes.
Even with all this chaos that's going on, you've just got to laugh a bit and
let the light in. Exactly.
So for now, it's goodbye from Lou.
And goodbye from Jen.